the Slido QR code that will be shown, or raise your hands for the people who are in the room. Please, please, please interact. It's going to be interesting. You just type it in online, and then we'll have a nice conversation in the end. Yeah? Okay, then I'll hand it over to Trevor Hubbard, CEO of Butchershop Global, out of San Francisco. He will introduce himself, but it's going to be a very interesting session for sure.
Thanks. All right. Hi. Happy to be here. We'll go back to the slides when you're ready. All right. So have an open mind. Take a deep breath. This is going to be a little different. Probably not what everyone's used to talking about. I'm losing my voice. Lots of conversations. Connect Day's working. As Katinka said, I'm the founder and global CEO of Butchershop. I'm the managing partner at Imagine Buy, which is an idea-first venture group. I'm the founder of Prio, which is a beat failure app that we built. Nina's a co-founder right there. I'm also an early investor in a lot of companies based in the US and in Silicon Valley, where I was born and raised. Personally, I'm a father. I'm a former NCAA basketball player. And I'm a national ski patroller, so I'm in the mountains saving lives on the weekends, I guess. Okay. That's very Austrian, right, to ski? So, yeah. All right, so this is going to be furious and fast, and I'm going to do this all in English because I don't speak German, although I do understand a little bit. Okay. I'll take you through Butchershop Global, who we are, very fast. I'm going to talk fast. I'm going to go through a really interesting concept called beat failure. I'm going to talk about diligence use case of how VCs and founders can find common ground and kind of a new way of thinking, or at least the way that we tend to think where I come from. And then I'm going to talk about a use case about how we apply it in our business, which, judging from the room, everyone's pretty smart here. You can figure out different ways you can use this really cool thing that I'm going to share with you in your own world. All right, who we are. I'm going to talk about Butchershop first. Butchershop Global is a growth and transformation company. It means we design business, we design brand, and we design products. And we do that massively all over the world. We actually have an office here in Vienna, so that's cool. If my mom were to ask me what I do, I would say we help brands and businesses break into emerging sectors or break out to lead them. There's a certain profile of company that we work with in our core business, and usually they're later stage companies. They've either just raised a big round, or they're about to go raise a big round, or they're about to IPO, or maybe they're coming off big inflection points, like buying a few companies, expanding to different markets, etc. Okay, 5 ways that we're different. We're Silicon Valley born and bred. I'm not saying it's the best place, but I'm saying there's a lot of really interesting things that have come out from there, and we've worked with over 700 companies in the 15 years of Butchershop being around. The next thing that's different is we do have a global presence. We have offices in New York, LA, San Francisco, Mexico, Vienna, and soon to be Vietnam. We also have a partner network. Moodly is a Vienna-based and Graz-based agency. We're very, very good friends with them. I'll see them tomorrow. But we're working on several $1 million in projects right now with them. So we're very connected here in Vienna, Graz, and really the whole DACH market or the CE market, because we see the globalization of companies happening, and you kind of have to look at brand and business holistically, not just regionalized. We also have Just Global, which I won't get into, but it's a big amplification company that's in media and performance. We're experts in the emerging, so we look for the cross-sections of culture and commerce of sectors that are breaking out. Crypto, anyone know what that is? We do a lot of stuff in that space. We'll figure out what it is one day, right? We have a connected model, so if you wanted to know what we do, really it's consulting, strategy, brand and content, performance and media, and digital product. We have a big software team that builds really cool stuff. By the numbers, this is pretty cool. We've helped 6 companies IPO, go public in the States. Our clients have raised over $16 billion, and we've taken on about 25 projects a year. So the reason I put this up is not to like say, I'm awesome, look how cool we are. It's to maybe deliver to you guys that I kind of know a few things because I talk to a lot of people and a lot of founders and a lot of startups and a lot of VCs, which is where most of our clients come from. So there's a little bit of knowledge that I'm trying to share with you. And the only thing that I want you to do is just have an open mind. It may not be for everyone. We're here in Vienna. And one of the coolest things about this company that I think is really unique is that one of our platforms is around beating failure. And I'm going to take you through what that means and why I think it's controversial, why I think it's different, and why I think maybe the US is a little bit more comfortable with the concept of failure than the German market or Austria, for example, okay? But we're here. That's literally my entire leadership team of 30 of us in Vienna going to museums and, you know, eating schnitzel, you know, which is very good, by the way. All right. The last one, I was talking about beat failure. I'm going to get into that. That's what the majority of this presentation is. Okay, here we go. That's us. Credibility. I think I have it. You be the judge of that. We have a grounded hypothesis. We observed a trend in the last 15 years at Butchershop. Companies really build their strategies based on success metrics and goals, okay? They have a hypothesis, they think about what success looks like, and they build a plan to get to it, right? And if you click down further on that, why do 90% of startups fail? So maybe the focus on success is maybe a little misplaced. Maybe it's the Achilles heel. Maybe it's something we need to look at. Maybe you have your own reasons. Maybe a strategy should be based on anticipating failures and planning to beat those failures and executing a plan to prevent those failures from even happening. Okay? Click down even further. My proposition to you, if you want to go on this journey, is that success outcomes increase when you increase clarity. So let's focus on that as a driver towards success. So essentially what I'm saying is that a lack of clarity is gaps of information, right? If success is about having max clarity, then don't you think our strategy should be based on all the unknowns that we have and finding out the answer and marching from one to the next? Interesting. Okay. You guys saw this stat. This is literally true. This is scary. It's a very odd kind of thing to think about. 80% of new businesses survive their first year, or don't survive. 50% survive the first 5 years, and 33% survive 10 years. That's an alarming stat, I think. So if 90% of startups fail, let's figure out maybe there's a different approach to looking at what the relationship to success and failure is. Okay, 3 questions for you, because I want to humanize this and I want people to smile a little bit more. Because you guys all look, anybody sitting like this with their arms crossed, I swear, just means you don't like anything I'm saying. All right, here we go. Body language, it matters. 3 questions, and this is just raising your hands, okay? And if you're at home, probably 2 of you, raise your hand. Okay. First question, how many of you have failed at something? Liar. No, kidding. Okay. Next question. This is cool. How many of you now know why you failed? Hindsight. Son of a bitch, right? Okay. The next question. Would you have invested in something to know what caused that failure before you started? Yeah? Okay. Like if you could have known that was going to happen, or why, or that was the reason, would you have done something about it? Would that knowledge have been currency? Would you have thought that that was valuable? All right. Well, we're not magicians. We're not, genies. We can't predict the past, the future. Well, you can predict can't predict the future. So, why? It's because of that. We suck at clarity. We sell the best possible stories, the best possible visions. We're enamored with success. We talk about metrics. We think about total addressable market. We think about competitor analysis. We do these audits. We think if the customer journey is right, it's going to be this, this, and this. Great, lovely, awesome. Okay. But in that is the big question. what would cause any of those outcomes to fail? So we suck at clarity. That's just humans. I mean, think of your relationship. The biggest quarrels you ever had with your partner, it's because there was a lack of clarity. You had 6 months to think about something, you gave them 6 minutes. That's not good, right? So we focus too much on what success should be and not nearly enough on what failures might occur. And that might occur is really important. So we get to dream a little bit about what could go wrong in this free and liberating kumbaya San Francisco yoga retreat environment, right? We get to think about these wonderful things. It's still business. So the opposite of success isn't failure, but doesn't that seem logical? Wouldn't you say like, it's going to succeed or fail? Don't we all say that? They're literally the opposite of each other? That's wrong. The opposite of success is that there's a lack of clarity. Give yourself a break. It's not always about failure. And further, the opposite of failure is clarity. The more clarity you have on something, the more unknowns there are that you go on a journey to make known, the higher chance of succeeding you have. Okay? There's a correlation here. So we got to get rid of this. We got to believe that. And we got to start living this way a little bit in business. We call it at Butchershop beat failure. It's a thing. It's trademark. People talk about it. They pay for it. They use it. They see it. You guys get it for free. So beat failure is designed to maximize clarity in any company, organization, startup, and any team. So if you're building a team, right? Which creates powerful strategies, clear accountability, and tangible execution plans. This established approach is one of the most valuable methods in strategic decision making. Okay? So we all talk about a startup, building a team, being with your co-founder. Who does what? What's going to make us fail? How do you build a team? How do they have accountability? How do I get the most performance out of them? All this shit can be solved if we start asking what could go wrong? What could fail? Okay? So we start with this mindset shift. It's an invitation for you to just shift your mindset away from success and into failure. Make failure a friend. Okay? But you have to have these 4 things in your mind, and sometimes what I do is write Post-its of each one of these things and put them on my computer just so I start thinking about them in everything I do. Now it's muscle memory because I've been doing this for so many years. But it takes habits. We have to break old ones and we have to start new ones. So the mindset and the belief is a lack of clarity breeds drama. Does that make sense? Whenever there's a lack of clarity, chaos ensues. Drama happens. People make wrong decisions. Expensive mistakes can happen, okay? Every failure, and I want somebody to challenge this and do your Slido thing and come up with an example. Tell me I'm wrong. Every failure comes from a lack of clarity. Ukraine, Russia, lack of clarity. Everything I can trace back to anything. Okay. Next one. The only way to get clarity is to identify unknowns and simply make them known. What does that mean? It means you're breaking things up into little individual strategies to go find the answers, right? Instead of looking at the macro and the overwhelming amount of work and problems, you use the failure points that could go wrong and you go get answers for them. How do I defend it? What do I need to have? What do I need to do? Who can support me? What are the dependencies? Sometimes your startup may have too many failure points. Maybe it's a bad idea. Maybe it's too much. Maybe there's just too much to uncover and it's not investable. Maybe it's not the right thing to go over. Maybe there's too much on you as a founder, right? And that you don't have a co-founder to kind of separate or share the workload. Tell you how it works. Next one. Every success comes from beating or preventing potential failure points. Ask any founder who looks back in hindsight that had a successful outcome, and they'll be like, God, I failed so many times. We in Silicon Valley wear failure as part of the entrepreneur's journey, and I think it's bullshit. I think it sucks. I think it's hindsight, and I think everyone stands on stage and tells you that being an entrepreneur, the badge value is really how many times you fail. And I can't tell you how many times I fail and how many lessons I learned from those failures. I'm not saying that the lessons aren't important, but I'm also saying there's another gear in thinking where you can look beyond what happens as the inevitable result and start questioning what might make something fail. And maybe you pick a couple off. Maybe you prevent a couple. Maybe those don't need to be a part of your journey. It's an interesting proposition. All right. My chief creative officer and associate partner, Ben McNutt, says this. If you think of your startup like a rocket ship, as all the metaphors and memes that we see and all the gifts that people send, we're building a rocket ship. How many people have said that about something they're working on? It's a rocket ship. You're all lying. Somebody's said that in your life, right? So you know. You don't build a rocket ship for the best case scenario. You build it for the worst case scenario. And I think that's more apparent now in our economic times with everybody trying to figure things out. You don't build something because it's going to be great. You build something because the only way to get to something being great is to build for the worst case scenarios. It's how I built my company. It's how I build my businesses. It's how I look at investments. It's how I look at founders. It's a very healthy way, a mature way to have meaningful conversations about something. So, the perspective shift. Success. Let's talk about failure. Let's make failure our friend. We got that? I have not been entirely successful. It's true. Okay. When you think about failure in this way, we debunk that Silicon Valley myth. The Silicon Valley myth is that, you fail fast, fail forward, move fast and break things, as Zuckerberg says. All the whole failure stuff. That's a bygone era. That worked for a few companies. It is not the inevitability. That is not how we have to be thinking. So I want to debunk that myth that we can get so far out in front of failure that we can start to predict and anticipate. And instead of being reactive, we can be proactive. It even feels liberating just talking about it. Failure is indeed your friend. Failure isn't a badge of honor, okay? It's okay to learn from failure. We're not going to get it 100% right. That's not what I'm saying. But it isn't inevitable, and you can actually beat it. I've seen it, and we do it all the time. So I didn't know who was going to be in this room. I assume people are venture people, investors. Some people are founders, startups. Other people are just curious. So it's a good mix, yeah? If any of these things reign true to your journey or things that you deal with, creating actionable next steps, experiencing shifts in the market, needing better risk assessment, trying to define strategic action plans, vetting a deal or a founder, right? If any of these things are in your world, shifting through economic times, there isn't a person in this room that's not thinking about that. So the question is, how do we apply beat failure to any one of those scenarios? It starts with this. It's a billion-dollar question. Am I exaggerating? No. Because I've seen it. I've seen it work. It's a billion-dollar question. What would make XYZ fail? XYZ is not a thing. You put your own thing in there, so if it, you get it, right? Okay. Designer. So yeah, what would make XYZ fail? That XYZ is whatever it is that you're working on. Your startup, potentially investing in a company, your own process, your team, raising money. You put anything in there, right? And you can do something really different. So this particular one, I'm going to focus just on vetting a deal and that founder-investor relationship, right? And how I come from Silicon Valley, and I work with everybody from Andreessen Horowitz to Lightspeed to Sequoia, all the big ones, small ones, later stage, early stage, seed. I'm an angel investor. So I know a little bit about what I'm talking about. All the platforms, the support they give their founders is the same. No one has any magic bullet. No one has anything special. I promise you. They're all the same. You can think it's different, but I want to show you one thing you might be able to add that might differentiate in how you build meaningful relationships and outcomes, okay? Assessing risk is hard, but betting on a founder is harder. How many people are founders again? I am. Okay, how many people invest in companies in here? Oh, it's like a war. You guys go to this side, you guys go to the, no, I'm just kidding. It feels a little bit like that sometimes. But I'm going to say something controversial yet again, and it's this. The founder-first narrative is fundamentally flawed. So if any VC is saying we're founder-first, fuck that. If any startup is saying we're looking for a VC that's founder-first, what we're really saying is that there's a way to have better outcomes, and we might be good partners. But in order to do that, see what I said before, lack of clarity breeds drama, right? The only way to success is to beat failure. So maybe we orient, if I'm offending anybody, talk to me after, sorry. Okay, so maybe if we use beat failure in this way, it's based on, anybody know what a postmortem is? Run a postmortem in a project? What went wrong? Let's not do that again, postmortem. Anybody ever ran a pre-mortem? Yeah? Engineer? Oh, okay. So pre-mortem is really interesting, and it's not my idea. It was developed in business school at Wharton. And what's really cool about it is it basically looks at whatever you're doing. Instead of thinking about all the things that got messed up at the end, you start to think about them in the beginning. What could go wrong, right? We've tweaked it a little bit, so it's a little bit of a system, right? What it does is it identifies potential failures and maximizes clarity. It creates prioritization based on the likelihood and impact of something happening. So how much do we really know? Is this really possible? Would this happen? It gives clear accountability to founders, teams, and investors. And it builds an action plan for resilient company growth, which is something we're all looking for, right? Don't believe me. We're just at the end. A lot of companies use this. So there's something happening here. People are not enamored with success as much when we focus so much on the day-to-day, which is riddled with all kinds of speed bumps and hurdles, okay? Have you guys heard of this company? Yeah, that's Nike. Okay. So platform, schmatform. Schmatform's not a German word. It's a joke in English. We usually add schmat or sh to something when we want to say, you know, what do I say to my kids? Wishful schmishful, you know, or whatever. So platform, schmatform. The most impactful 1-hour meeting you can have. Okay? We're all about time. What's our diligence process look like? How am I going to go pitch? How am I going to go raise money? Time. So 1 hour. Here's how it works as far as the shared value. If you're a venture firm, it's not about the money, but it does go into valuations very quickly, and it's all that stuff, right? But it turns subjectivity into objectivity. It allows you to be very helpful and strategic. It can give you a consistent diligence process that if you're starting to vet your deals and you're starting to vet companies, you're using this beat failure approach based on this pre-mortem to really look at what the failure points are. And you can talk to the founder, and they can essentially tell you the acknowledgement of the gaps that they have. A founder is flawed, just as I am as a father, just as I am as a business leader. I don't know it all. I can't do it all. But we put this whole emphasis on founders being able to know how to go to market, how to develop a sales strategy, how to sell. What if they're just an engineer? What if they just like building good shit? How do they build a team? Do they know about culture? Are they a good leader? Like, come on. It's the idea that you put in the center, right? The idea of what they're trying to build, and you swarm that with the right things, right? And that happens when you actually have a candid conversation where you can actually talk to a founder in a constructive way. Hey, what would make this fail? Well, on our end, it might be this. On our end, it might be this. Cool. You can also really start to understand if a founder has the spectrum of ego, or if they're, really looking for support and help, or if they actually know where their shortcomings are and what they need help with. I've made investments just on that, because then I can see I can help you here, here, and here. I cannot help you here. But you can't do that if you're just having circular conversations about vision and strategy and where they're going, right? So this develops a little bit of a framework, and in 1 hour, you can go through this, and I'm going to show you how you do it. You can identify tripwires. But essentially, it gets the idea in the middle, which I think is what's lacking in a lot of our approaches. Okay. It's about clarity. Can 1 hour meeting give more clarity on both sides of the spectrum in anything that you do? Here's how it works. And if you guys want this presentation after, you can have it. It's not a, so don't write it down, you know. Anyway. Step 1, you identify potential risks and points of failure. And you get those by simply asking, what would make this fail? If you focus on a success list, it's like 3 or 4 things. It's like metrics. They're like, well, we have to get this total addressable market. We need 6,000 users. We need to have this much revenue and turnover by, you know, such and such date. Okay, cool. What would make all that fail? The lists get really long, right? It gets really personal. Maybe I don't have a co-founder. Maybe we don't really know our audience. We don't really know our customer. Our product cycles are taking too long. We don't have enough engineers. We don't have enough runway. We don't have enough funding, right? We can't hire fast enough. We don't have anybody doing BD to open up doors to some of the accounts that we're trying to go after. All that shit is great to come on a list that's neutral playing ground, right? So step 1, make that list in conversation. Do it in a group. Do it in person. Do it in Zoom. You guys ever tried Zoom? Step 2. This is cool. Priorities. Make a link to the outcome of these things. And you do that by assessing the likelihood and the impact. And I'll show you how you do that. But now you get a list where it's not just everything's the same importance. What are the biggest things? I'm going to tell you that if you solve for some of the bigger things, the smaller things start to work out themselves out. You know how many times I've heard people come to us and the first thing they say is like, our customers just aren't responding. Our brand just isn't there. Like, we need a new website. Like, but your product sucks. Like, what, you know, let's focus on getting the product right, and then the website will work itself out. Because if we have product clarity, then the website, you know, to sell that product gets a lot clearer, right? So stop thinking that you need a website. What are you raising the money for? I need to build a new website. No, you don't, okay? So this is neutral playing ground for prioritization. Step 3, this is cool. So if you've ever been in a team, you ever had somebody say, we're going to get clarity here, and they just talk to you about it, and then they repeat themselves 4 times, and they say, clarity delivered. Yeah? How many times has that been in a meeting, right? Actually, the way that clarity is delivered is people talk about what could go wrong, and then once it's acknowledged that that could go wrong, you assign somebody to be accountable to not let that happen. Yeah? Not like their own job is to go find out what the audience or the customer wants. That's not, but it's for them to own it and build the strategy to go find that out, right? So accountability is how you do it. And you can assign every failure point to one person. If you're a VC, we got this. If you're a founder, I got this, right? You can go down the list and figure out who's doing what. Isn't that key to moving something forward? Not having the same meeting 3 weeks later going like, where are we at and all this stuff. Now you have something to track. Like, come on, we all know this, right? Step 4, you can then execute that plan with maximum clarity and constantly come check back in. We're a culture of list makers. How many people run their lives on making lists? Do you know that you get dopamine and endorphins by simply crossing something off the list? You guys all know that, right? Do you know why we make lists where they're really easy in the beginning? Because it's shit that doesn't need to be on a list. You're going to do it anyway, but we just want to cross it off. Yeah? Very strategic. Okay, that's not how the world works. So, if you look at this in diagram, you list these points out on a scale of 1 to 10, what's the likelihood of it happening based on what we know? On a scale of 1 to 10, what's the impact it would have? You multiply those numbers, you get a giant big number, max 100, okay? You do that for all the 15, 20, 30 failure points. What are you going to have? Bigger numbers? Smaller numbers? One would think that if the bigger the number, the higher on the list it is, the more important it is. Yeah? So now we've just got out of the whole thing of making pointless lists to check things off. Now they matter. Now they have a strategy. Now you can do people assignment. Each failure point gets a name whose responsibility it is. Sounds logical. Step 4 is on each of those, you can ask the questions, what do we need to know? What do we need to do? What do we need to have? What are the dependencies? What are the next steps? So you've just broken up this overall go-to-market strategy or whatever the hell it is that you're doing, and you've broken it into micro strategies that will move the ball forward. Yeah? Okay. So if you're a VC, a venture capitalist, or if you're an investor, or if you're a founder, it might go something like this. Investor, if you don't have a co-founder who understands sales and marketing, you will fail. Founder says, I don't understand our customer and buying decisions. If we don't know that, we will fail. Cool. Talk about it. Rank them. 5, 8, 3, 9. What's bigger? 40. So now there's a little assignment that gets made. And in that assignment, the investor now has a very, very clear suggestion, which is to help recruit a co-founder. A founder might also say, hire a co-founder, common ground, okay? In step 4, the investor now actually has action they can take. Activate a network, recruit candidates, help co-interview candidates, maybe share the job description. Investor, write that job description, create a co-founder package for compensation, whatever it is, and go through the hiring process, right? So this may not seem like actual real world or how the world works, but I'm trying to give you guys an example of how if you have 20 of these things on a list, you've now created a meaningful platform as an investor, and you've transferred value to a founder, and a founder can participate and actually be a better founder because of clarity and accountability. Okay, here's the benefits. I'm not going to go through this, but I think you guys kind of get the equation that if you do that 1-hour meeting and use beat failure and ask the billion-dollar question and focus on clarity rather than success, you can actually beat failure, and these are the benefits of that for investors and founders. Okay. You guys are smart. I already know that because you're here. Cool. So I'm going to give you a couple ways that we at Butchershop use beat failure in a different way. We're not investing in companies every day. We're not founding companies every day, but we're doing something different. We're providing a very valuable service for growth and transformation for companies at very critical inflection points. Our client roster is huge. Brands that you guys all know and are probably wearing, so it's there. 3 ways that we use it at my company are client partner development. We use this thing called a clarity session, which is that 1-hour meeting that I've been telling you about. And we do these bigger things called beat failure workshops, mostly for 20, 30, 40, 50, 60 people, depending on the size. Okay? For our business development, as a service provider, we are paid in direct proportion to the value and the problems that we solve, right? So the bigger the problem, the more valuable we are, right? In order for us to design our business at Butchershop, we needed to get out of services and into products. A service is like a window washer. They come over, they look at your house, they give you a bid. It's going to cost X amount of dollars or euro to wash your windows. They come over, they do the job. You look at the job as the homeowner and you say, it's a little streaky. I forgot, I have like skylights. Oh, the garage, it's got windows all over. Sir, can you get that and do this and do this? And the window washer just needs to go to his next job. It's a service provider. So what does he do? He's late for his next 2 hours, can't really upcharge, loses money. That's a service. A product is an Apple Watch. Go to an Apple store, can't go grab one, take it home, try it for 3 weeks, load it with an app, call the store and be like, I really like this Apple Watch. I think I'll buy it now. It's not how it works. The value is clear. You know an Apple Watch. You know the brand. You know what you're getting. You know the features. You know the benefits. You know what it means. You know that your friends will think you're cool. It's got all the things, right? That's a product. SaaS product, doesn't matter. It's the same thing. So for us, how do we move our services into products? Well, we use this. So when we talk to a client, and if you're running a SaaS company or a products company, think about it this way. We ask, what would make this project or what would make your brand or your business fail? When we have that session, we get some really awesome things to come out, right? And what we've done is we've designed all our products to beat those failure points. Does that make sense? It's really hard for a customer to say, actually, I don't want that product or that product. I'm okay if these things happen, if these things fail. It's fine. It's not gonna, no one's gonna get mad. We just, may go bankrupt. It's fine. So we designed our solution, our product solutions, to beat failure points, okay? One of the coolest things, since we've done this, is our contracts. Average contract has increased 157%. We've taken our average contract from 350,000 to close to $1 million in 6 months. 6 months by installing this process. Clarity, transparency, accountability, product to market fit, actually being of value, not showing our services as pure window washing services that can be scrutinized and the value can be depleted, but showing real value by saying this is the product we offer to solve a very critical failure point, okay? And it's not like we're soothsayers or what do they call them? Snake oil people. These are real companies like Okta, like Facebook, like Zenithal, Meta. What do you guys think about Meta? That's weird. Iron Man, Nike, Converse, Jordan Brand. Like, there's a lot of companies that we work with that they're allergic to bullshit. And it's very competitive. So the fact that this provides clarity and is very helpful has changed the entire structure and relationship, okay? Again, I'm using these as examples of how we're using beat failure in certain cases. And when I said you guys are really smart, it means you can use beat failure in a lot of things, whether it's your product journey, your investment journey, your founder journey, all the things, okay? The next, I'm going to show how we applied it to an actual project, a brand we all know, Nike. Nike came to us and with our partner in Germany called Hoffa, and they said, we need to reinvent our career site, how we hire globally around the world, right? If you guys believe it or not, Nike hires quite a few people, both in retail and corporate, and it's not in one country, it's in like 20, right? Huge. They wanted to consumerize the experience, but didn't know how. They wanted to increase retention. They wanted to make the time to find candidates less. So we didn't start the conversation with like, yeah, let's use design thinking and design the experience. We simply asked the question, great, this is an ambitious project. We don't need to tell you the solution and how much it costs and how much time it is. Let's let you go through this process and you'll see what it should take to do this, right? Kind of smart. So what would cause Nike career site experience to fail? This is what they came up with us. You know what's really funny about this list? You guys want to see how many things aren't really about designing a new global career site? About that many. If we would have just talked about the project, it would have been about design and the experience and all these things. But what we essentially did is we found out all the different things that could make this project go fail, that could fail, and 6 of them have nothing to do about what the scope probably would have been. This first one, HR doesn't have a budget for content. We don't have an employer brand established. These were not parts of the scope. So what do? They rank these as the highest failure points. We were able to get a $1.6 million content budget. And we were able to help them sell that to the right leaders with a justified case. You can't build an experience and talk about how great it is to work at Nike if you don't decorate the house with stories of how great it is to work at Nike. And one of the biggest problems at Nike, which was a failure point, was that they don't own their content. Millions of things that you see from Nike are owned by all the different agencies and creators. They do not have a repository. There isn't one place to find it. It was going to be a nightmare. We also, through all those failure points, were able to get to a better outcome on the actual product itself. The stats speak for themselves. I don't think we would have been able to get to this place if we didn't come from a place of talking about what would make the project fail. Okay. 4 minutes. I'm like almost, it's on time, huh? Okay, bonus. Are you ready? Just to show you how serious we are about this, we spent over $1 million. Probably too much money, right? Considering what it is, right? Yeah. No, I'm kidding. We actually realized that during the pandemic, it's really hard to do these workshops when you can't have Post-its and you can't sit in a room and you can't get up and you lose people in Zoom, right? Zoom sucks. It's a necessity, and it's gonna stay forever. But sometimes it's nice to look at a wall, see it, instead of a mural board or a fig jam or whatever the hell you're using, right? So we created this thing called Prio. Download it, go subscribe to it. And what it is it puts this whole process that I said into a digital format, right? So you can essentially work with teams, work with an investor, talk about the failure points, rank them, add new categories and different fields about what the next steps are, what's the action, assign it to a person for accountability. And soon this is going to plug in, hopefully, to other project management tools and APIs that we're using. But for right now, it's a really great way if you're a VC to just track your diligence conversations. And you can use and leverage the data. What are founders all saying their failure points are? Maybe they're all saying the same thing. Maybe we need to have a stronger sort of point of view around this, right? Maybe you're with a team and you're building, a marketing team, or you're building a more robust engineering team. We'll talk about failure and start assigning accountability. At my company, when we do performance reviews twice a year, one of the coolest things is that we have a little slant where we don't ask, so what were your successes this year? How well did you do? Tell me what was your strengths were this year. Say, what failure points did you prevent? Right? I would much rather have someone on my team that's preventing failure rather than trying to make menial successes into something that is subjective, right? I had a guy that was a producer, won't name names, Andy, but he was supposed to be an executive producer on something like Nike. Come performance review time, he had integrated a chatbot. No, what is it? He integrated a plug-in to Slack. I forget what it was even called. But it sort of automated some of the responses and things that we have. And he was so damn proud of it. And he pitched it like it was like he just essentially cured cancer, right? And it was to the point where I'm like, it was taking valuable time away. He was turning this into a big initiative. There was no clarity on what it was, but this was his biggest success. But it wasn't core to anything in his job. If we would have said, what would make you fail in your job, and this was installed at the time, one of the first things we said is if you don't focus on anything but producing excellent content, this wouldn't have happened, right? But we didn't have that. So people go into these weird directions, and they celebrate these things that I think need to be questioned a little bit. So Prio, you can go online. You can use it for free. It's easy. If you want to use it for a team, you can send us an email. We'll give you access to it. It's pretty sweet. Takes a lot of time out of having to use Post-its on a wall. So thank you. That's what I got. And open for questions, I guess. But hopefully that was eye-opening. Yeah, thanks. Okay. How many of the 700 startups you worked with fail? That's a good question. I actually don't know the answer to that. 15 years of work, I don't think we track things that way. I can tell you that there are quite a few that are no longer in business, But I also think that there are certain things in your control and out of your control. I think a lot of the failure points that I can talk about, we're doing this really cool report, and if you want to get on the list, get in touch with us. But we're essentially scrubbing all our data from every beat failure clarity session that we've done, and we're cross-referencing that to what are the biggest failure points that we've seen on startups at this size, at this size, and at this size. And we're segmenting that data to give to people to also have suggestions for why some of those failures have happened. We don't have a mechanism to go cross-verify whether or not they did happen that far back. But I do think it'll be really interesting to see, just in broad swoop, what the data shows. So I can't answer that question. Sorry, whoever asked that. The person's name is Philip. Thank you, Philip. Yeah.
I like this concept a lot, and I agree with most of the things you said. What I'm concerned is like the timing, because you said at the beginning, Russia, Ukraine, we should have known that earlier. Some say we should have known that at 2007, others say 2014, yeah? So looking at the past, hindsight is always, And also in the future. So startup success depends on, is there a financing round after the money is gone? And actually right now, the financing situation is completely different than only a few months ago. And how should you predict something like that to avoid failure?
So what this is talking about and what you're speaking to is how do we get more in sync with the actual realities of timing, right? Okay, fair enough. That's hard to do, and I don't think there's a magic bullet for getting there. I can tell you this, though. When you talk about failure and you build that into muscle memory, one of the failure points could be for that startup not being ready for a follow-on, right? Or, in our case, 4 years ago when we were talking about Butchershop, one of our failure points that was written on the board, do you remember what it was, Nina? Exactly. So one of the things that was on our failure board is that there's a global catastrophe and we're shut down and locked into San Francisco. That was actually something years ago that was put on the board. What did we do? We expanded our business and got out of leaning on San Francisco too much, right? So I guess what I'm saying is it depends how far you take the conversation, you know, of like, if there are failure points that you can put as an investor at that are your basics. If you don't have a plan for how you're going to raise a follow-on round, you will fail. If you don't have a contingency for economic and market shifts and you don't start thinking about that, what if this happens? You will fail. So part of it is like, how far do you want to go in what you know and bring that knowledge to the beginning? Because one of the things that I think we valued when we do this on ourselves is even during the pandemic, believe it or not, we grew 60% during the pandemic, right? We expanded. I acquired one company. We opened an office in Vienna, all during the pandemic. We grew our headcount by 30%. So I'm not saying I'm great. That's not what I'm saying. But I'm saying we had strategies in place because we thought of what would happen if certain things took place that were failures, right? Ones that are in our control, ones that are out of our control. And as an investor, bringing that into your platform about how you talk to founders sounds really smart to me, right? Getting them prepped for all the different scenarios that could happen. I don't know if that answers your question. I just don't think there's any one way to be sure, you know? So, yeah. All right, good question. Let me go to this one real quick. Feel free to ask the speaker questions. That's what it says.
Just a question. Do you have long-term relationships with clients like Nike, or do they implement the strategy and this methodology that you teach them? How does it work? Because I think in a large company like Nike, Adidas, or also like in the stock market, it's a hard thing to get it into the organization to work that way.
Yeah, I would say we're either preaching the methodology and trying to get that adopted, which is hard to do. And we don't typically do that as much. On Nike, we applied it to a specific project, not the relationship, right? So it got the project done. Now, of how we've seen so much growth in our business, where our contract values have risen and we're doing all that, what I would say is that by doing this with our clients and building our scopes around what failures we're preventing, our scopes have gotten bigger. The engagements have gotten longer, right? And it's more of a journey now. growth and transformation doesn't happen overnight. We know that. And the companies we work with, they're not just in the US, they're here too. They're at big inflection points, right? Maybe they've just made a series of acquisitions. Maybe they're trying to go to the next biggest market, which is Germany. Maybe they're trying to break into the US. You know, whatever it is, right? Our engagements aren't designed to solve a Nike's problem of building a career site. They're more to help in where they're trying to go to become a more consistent brand, a better product, a better company, a better all those things that go into that. So I'd say, yes, it has made our relationships with our clients much more impactful and meaningful, much more longer and long-standing. But for us, we're still project-based. So we still look at a year, year and a half as a project. But then, you know, the kittens need to go out and become cats. No. Anything else? No? Oh, yeah.
Hi.
Hi.
I loved this. Thank you so much for bringing this. I'm taking a lot away from what you said. I just have one kind of question about failure. I just did a coaching certification, and the way it's taught, the way we think about failure is that it's kind of the worst thing that could happen. And as part of this coaching certification, they were like, success is definitely the best thing that can happen, but failure is the second best thing. If you can embrace failure as not a reason to like shy away from it, but as a reason to find data points upon which you can build your next success, you can like deal with the feeling that failure gives you, even if you lose a lot of money or even if whatever else is failure could mean. If you reprogram yourself to think of failure as a good thing, the way you said failure is your friend, then you're much more likely to deal with it.
Sure.
Right? What you presented avoids failure in a way, or yes. So that's kind of my thing. Like, because one of the other things we're learning is very similar to what you taught. Like to ask yourself, what are the obstacles of what you're trying to do, and then what strategies can you come up with to deal with those obstacles, and then go and do those strategies and fail as you're doing those strategies, and embrace the failure as you're learning from them, as you're pursuing those strategies.
What's your name?
Kathy.
Kathy. That's awesome. I think we're actually saying the same thing. Mm-hmm. What I'm proposing is that you face failure absolutely head on, but you start to add up one more layer to that thinking, which is prediction. You start to think about what could happen. Mm-hmm. Once you think that you know that, then you experiment. That could fail. Then you experiment again. That could fail. For example, I'm launching a new product. I think my customer looks like this. It's a big assumption. I don't really know. So one of the things that can make us fail is that we don't have product to market fit because we don't know our customer. I'm facing that potential failure head on, which means I need to now go find out. So now I need to come up with a strategy and a plan to go find that out. Mm-hmm. And then, instead of launching, letting the failure happen, and then going, I'm going to learn from my failure, we're going to actually have a better chance of launching successfully because I did that work, because I knew that that might be a failure point. And in that, I may have to iterate 3 or 4 times. It may come back to me and say, you need to change the product here, here, and here. Or we totally got this wrong, right? So we're saying the same thing because I'm talking about embracing failure. I'm talking about having a different relationship with it. I'm talking about making it your friend and in no way avoid it. I'm saying face it head on and turn it into experiments with meaning and prioritization, and give people in your team and your network an accountability to participate in that. So it's like I call it failure 3.0. It's thinking about it in a much more dynamic, proactive way, rather than just relying on the old way, which a lot of leadership coaches are, that failure is horrible, and although it's a great teacher, it can still teach us if it's progressive, and we're trying to, mitigate it. Mm-hmm. Does that help?
Totally.
It's the same perspective.
Yeah, no, really does. Can I ask one more question?
Yeah, sure.
I was wondering about when you said about measuring the prioritizing actually the failures and the accountability piece. And you said about applying likelihood times impact. How do you measure that?
Debate.
Okay, that's it.
So no, I mean,
Consensus.
I've done this hundreds of times, so I'll tell you how it goes. It's anecdotal data, right? It's data that takes in whoever's having the conversation, your team, a one-on-one, whatever. It takes on their experience, what you know. And so I always ask people when I'm doing these exercises and these sessions to say, put on your CEO hat, put on your company hat, put on your own individual, put on your Kathy hat, put on your, think about how you're going to argue and debate the likelihood of this happening and the catastrophic impact it would have if it did happen. What's really cool is through that debate, you start to hear people say, this is kind of how it goes. Somebody thinks the likelihood's really high. Another person says, I actually think it's low because we have this and we have this. And you're like, I didn't know you had that. And then it starts to take shape that maybe it's not as big of a deal. So the debate is very healthy. It's part of how you get that anecdotal sort of data, right? And so what you end up doing is agreeing on something. And especially if you have teams where they're not very good together, watch how quick this makes them bond and get to the bottom of something, right? So watch out for that. And if you ever do this with a session, that debate is as valuable as the number itself. Yeah.
So you need a team, though.
You can do it. I do it with myself. I always tell the joke that I did it on me failing as a father. I have a whole list, and I rank them, So you can do it in your own echo chamber. You can do it with a person. You can do it with a team of 8. Mm-hmm. You can run it with a full company and have breakouts of teams. Mm-hmm. See if they come up with the same answers. You might think the engineering team has a different relationship to the failure points than the C-suite. What does that mean? Huge lack of alignment. So you can see a lot in the anecdotal data of where people are having their displacement in conversation. It's cool.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you. Yes.
From your experience from the 700 companies or clients you work with, obviously when you're preparing this, listing out these failures, possible failures, probably the lists were very, very long, yeah? And then they got prioritized. And from your experience, on how many topics do they focus? I don't know, 10, 15, and then developed all the strategies?
Yeah. So there's topics. So if, let's say I'm in a team of 8 and everybody puts in their 5, 6, 7 failure points, right? That's 50. That's a lot, right? A lot of them are the same. I've never been in a meeting doing this workshop or this clarity session where at least 30, 40% are very similar. And you can also tell how good a company is if a lot of people have the same failure points. That's a good sign, right? It means we're all looking at the problem the same way. So what that breaks down is you can put it in the Prio app, there's a way to put it into bigger topics: finance, partnerships, fundraise, team, culture, product, whatever. You can consolidate them into into verticals, and you can kind of see based on how many things there are, what's the most concerning. And you get this really interesting sort of board to look at and see where the biggest issues are, right? So it's not about going through every single person's one, but it's about finding the common threads and then trying to find the macro categories that you can put those things into.
Okay. So bucket them and then the most important.
Yeah, yeah, and then it ranks it for you.
Yeah.
And then you can raise the bar on your risk threshold.
Yeah.
So if you want to address things that are above 50 and above, you can drop that down where you just address those. Anything below that, usually the things up here will fix those things down there. So it's a cool way to kind of look at not everything. You have to start somewhere. And usually those 5 or 6 major things, you can develop little strategies on each one, and then you have your plan to move forward.
No, it was just like deja vu with Six Sigma,
Yeah.
I loved Six Sigma. I'm a little bit older here, so like 20, 30 years ago, that was the trend, right?
Yeah.
But I found it extremely practical because sometimes you got lost in this Six Sigma black theory, and it was like, you had the whole department of many people working on this. It was like endless.
That's what it seems like because everyone's chasing tasks.
Yeah, exactly.
They're not prioritizing.
Yeah.
Cool.
Okay.
Well, that's it, I think.
I mean, one comment, it's amazing because I realized while you were talking as well and now exchanging, actually in our education system, I'm coming from Poland, so I'm not from here, but 20 years ago I moved here. And here in the educational system, everybody's looking for failure. So till you are 18, it's like focus, failure, find the failure. And then everybody's hiding the failure. This is crazy.
Childhood was painful. That's why they hide it later in life. Scar tissue. All right. Oh, yeah, one more? Okay, sorry. Yeah.
Yeah, okay, thanks for that.
Yeah.
It's interesting concept, and this is actually first time I've heard anyone use it except of me. And I use it out of the total necessity, so it's funny that you came up to the same results. But my question is, you talk about how to use it on a big projects and stuff like that, but I'm thinking, did you ever try to use it like on managing individuals and people, and what was the results?
Yeah. So what you just said kind of reminded me of this funny thing what's the definition of modern art?
Modern art?
Yeah, what's the definition of modern art?
I don't know.
I could have done that, plus, yeah, but you didn't.
Yeah.
I'm just messing with you. I'm talking about the pre-mortem. Yeah. No, I love that. And I'm really, it means that you have a very interesting relationship to moving a project forward and failure. So to answer that question, I think it's the best thing to do with somebody on your team to ask them what would make them fail in their job.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's the same process. They list things, you get to list things, you rank those things, and essentially their plan to move forward and performance and whatever it is to prevent those things from happening. That's a much better relationship, I think, with somebody than to say, fulfill the job description. Because then they're going to argue, I did that, I can't do that. Then it's going to be your opinion. But if the failure points are very clear and you rank those things, you could apply it to a team member. You could apply it to an entire unit. That's kind of how we do things at my company, right? Where our performance reviews are very much based on those failure points, right? At least that's how we talk. So does that help a little bit?
Yeah, sure.
I endorse it. All right, I think that's it. Thank you for the, how do we get the presentation? There you go. All right. You guys, thanks for the time and inviting me to your great city and country. I appreciate it. Thanks.